bring wonder and hope. We bring joy and dreams. We are the Sandman and the Tooth Fairy. We are the Easter Bunny and Santa. And our powers are greater than you ever imagined. It is our job to protect the children of the world. For as long as they believe in us, we will guard them with our lives.
Rise of the Guardians has one of the weakest stories I've ever seen. It's not bad, it's just all over the place. There's no focus, no arc, way too many subplots that never get developed to their fullest potential. And you know what? I had a hard time caring. DreamWorks has a special ability to make an okay story more engaging by giving us strong characters that are easy to relate to. In this one we have the Guardians, who are diverse and intriguing and fun to watch as they bounce off each other. Their characters are developed. A little. And their different worlds are developed. A little. The biggest problem with the film is that the story is constantly being pulled in multiple directions and none of the subplots are ever fully realized. Most of the time the solution to having too many storylines is to whittle down the content into one cohesive idea. But in this case, I want to see more of every single idea presented to us in this film. I want to see all of these really creative ideas developed to their fullest potentials, possibly even in their own separate films.
When was the last time you guys actually hung out with kids?
We are very busy bringing joy to children. We don't have time for children.
Rise of the Guardians feels like it could easily have been stretched out into multiple movies, probably because it was based on a series of children's books. Now I haven't read them, but from what I understand, each one tells the origin story of a different Guardian. The movie actually takes place years after the events of the books, which was a commendable move. It still draws on the books for source material, but doesn't step on the toes of the original stories, encouraging viewers to read the books if they want to get the whole picture. But even then, this movie still left me wanting more. I would gladly have sat through multiple films that gave us an expanded look at this universe. Even if they had kept the focus on Jack Frost, who, from what I understand, was not in the books, this could have been an awesome Jason Bourne-esque trilogy, leading up to Jack eventually discovering who he is and getting his memories back. The film itself even feels like the conclusion to a series. The villain is an ancient evil who's making his glorious return after the heroes were able to keep him at bay temporarily. All of these characters have a history that we never really get to see. The film opens on Jack's origin story, but then we get a flash forward to hundreds of years later. The film is trying to play catch-up with us for characters we aren't familiar with, while at the same time advancing a new story. The plot is pulled in so many different directions that everything ends up feeling rushed. The Sandman is destroyed pretty early on in the film, and the memorial is sad and touching, but we've barely spent any time with the Sandman. There's not much of an emotional connection to his character. There's a scene near the end where Jack is at his lowest, his staff is destroyed, and he's almost completely alone. But he picks himself back up in almost no time at all, and then fixes his staff with no explanation as to how he can suddenly do that. But the most rushed scene of all is the climax. There is a lot of build-up throughout the film to a big climactic battle between Pitch and the Guardians, but they defeat him with really little effort. The tide is turned in favor of the good guys before it ever really had much of a chance to be against them. And then the Sandman returns. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was good to see him live in the end, but there was a little voice in the back of my head saying, how? So the really painful thing about this movie is not that it's full of bad ideas, it's that it's full of great ideas that are always just glanced over. The story just brushed the surface of a deep, complex, and creative world. I loved getting a fresh look at all of these recognizable characters. Santa Claus is Russian, and a lot spunkier than many interpretations of the character in the past. The Easter Bunny is Australian, there's something really fun about that. And the Tooth Fairy is gorgeous. She looks like a big, friendly, exotic bird. And she's not just there to be pretty, either. She fights just as much as the other Guardians. But what really sells the movie is Jack. He has a complicated backstory, which is really nothing new. But for me, the strength came from the fact that he was desperately trying to figure out who he used to be, but in the meantime is perfectly secure in who he has become. It doesn't really feel like he needs to bring up these old memories to figure out who he is, so much as he's just curious, and because of that, it's easier for me to suspend my disbelief and really feel that he could snap himself out of a low moment so quickly. The scene where he discovers his past is effectively gut-wrenching and heartwarming, and I wouldn't change the writing one bit. What I might tweak is the pacing, but like I said, that's an issue throughout the film. What bothers me most is that while Rise of the Guardians was well received by filmgoers, it was a box office failure, costing DreamWorks millions and resulting in hundreds of layoffs. This is an absolute shame because Rise of the Guardians is a good movie. It has some major story problems, but it was a fun time that really can be enjoyed by kids and adults alike. And it looks amazing. Granted, visuals shouldn't carry a film, but a story that revolves around these beloved fairy tale characters and the worlds they inhabit needs to have strong design elements. These worlds were a joy to look at, and each one feels unique. The problem is that they're so awesome they left audiences wanting more. And that wouldn't even be a problem except for the dismal box office returns, all but guaranteeing we won't be getting a sequel. Why did the film do so poorly? I can't really say, but I do know that times are tough financially, and despite of this, I still went to see Wreck-It Ralph in theaters twice, while I only went to see this one once. Rise of the Guardians is good, it just wasn't good enough to bring people back for multiple viewings, or to get them to tell their friends they had to see it. Which is really a sad commentary on the state of the film industry today.
Now, a picture has to make a killing the first weekend, or they're dead. This is supposed to be conducive to great work?
And if the biggest complaint I can come up with against it is that I want to see more of it, then DreamWorks obviously did something right here. One final little point of praise.
Still think there's no such thing as the boogeyman?
I do believe in you. I'm just not afraid of you.
Maybe I'm reading too much into that line, and this is just another case of showing kids the importance of facing their fears. But it feels like there's a deeper meaning here. I really like the idea of a kids' movie showing young audiences not just the importance in standing up to what you're afraid of, but acknowledging that what you're afraid of is real, and you're justified in fearing it because it can hurt you, but that you do have the power not to let it hurt you. Whatever the creators were trying to get across here, it's a powerful story point that the helpless kids are just as instrumental in defeating the villain as the powerful guardians. The film is great simply for what it is, a fun holiday adventure with some fascinating characters and gorgeous visuals, a solid effort on the part of the production team. I give it 2.5 stars out of 4. Rise of the Guardians was created by DreamWorks Animation and distributed by Paramount Pictures.
You cannot kill fear, Jack. I'm not afraid of you. We stand together.
You take the ones on the left, I'll take the ones on the right?